Andrew Robb, good morning. Welcome.
Morning, Barry.
Is it fair enough to sell this, in part at least, as a response to the global financial crisis?
Oh, I think that's grossly overstating it. It's something that's been in the planning for most of the year, as I understand it. I mean, the health spending's it's a good thing, the education spending is a good thing, but I mean, the state governments, I think, have had a $3 billion windfall this year in GST. This will add $15 billion over 5 years. So to talk about 133,000 jobs being created, it may well do, but it's over 5 years. And in terms of a response to this crisis, well, I think that's gilding the lily a bit.
But the implication, I guess, is that they've gone further than they would have otherwise gone because of the global financial crisis, that they've spent new money and more new money as a result.
Well, I don't know about that, Barry. Look, Kevin Rudd has said now for 2 years that he will re-engineer federalism. I think, you know, one of the big observations for me the last 3 or 4 weeks is it looked very much like business as usual. You know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. It looked like a process very similar to what we've observed over the last decade or more with COAG. They are grossly overstating. The sentiments, the words are fine, the objectives are fine. It's all out in the never-never. There has been 12 months now and very little action apart from layering many more bureaucrats around the COAG process.
But that's not what the premiers are saying. They're saying that just because most of them are Labor.
Well, in a sense, they take what they can get. You think back, I think in nearly every COAG meeting under John Howard, certainly the last few years, there would be lots of tantrums in the lead-up, as we've seen again this time, all about infrastructure and all sorts of projects, many of which weren't even discussed yesterday. An outcome, and invariably a press conference with people welcoming new money, as you would. It's worthwhile. I suppose my point is, you know, one of the 4 planks of Kevin Rudd coming into the election, 4 planks of reform, COAG, re-engineering federalism. You know, there's nothing like that. This is business as usual in many respects. And yesterday I thought more than that, though, was a huge missed opportunity to do something significant with all of those governments together to unlock the billions of dollars of cash that's locked up in private equity funds around Australia. Do something really tangible about addressing the financial meltdown that we've got and the implications that has for the real economy.
What is new about yesterday, though, is that a lot of this funding is now tied to outcomes. Now, that was a long time in coming. Surely that was overdue.
Well, but again, special purpose payments for a decade now have been tied to outcomes. I mean, it's
quite specific outcomes now that the premiers understand. They must reach these particular benchmarks. Well,
again, if you look at special purpose payments, as I have, over the last decade, again, there were outcomes expected from the money. We've got to look at, you know, there's no mechanism outlined as to how they will go about this, how the states will pursue it, and the consequences of not meeting these outcomes. It's years away, many of these things. So the words are fine, but what we're seeing, as we've seen all year, a lot of talk and not really a lot of action on the ground, and money being spent. The disposition of this government, as is their response to the financial meltdown, is to spend. Their only instinct of Labor...
They're getting a lot of advice to do that externally as well.
Labor, yes. Well, what they've forgotten about is the private sector. You know, Barry, Infrastructure Australia, they've invited projects. They've got $700 billion worth of infrastructure projects. The Commonwealth Government's got $7 billion in the Building Australia Fund, $7 billion, not $700 billion, to go towards these essential projects. Yet we find in our superannuation funds nearly $1 trillion, $200 billion of cash sitting there now. That money is being invested in infrastructure projects overseas, not here. Yesterday's meeting of COAG could have sat down and removed the roadblocks to superannuation funds in Australia investing here and cash management funds. There's a cash management fund in Australia that's currently putting the investment ruler across 65 tollways in the United States, but not one here.
But superannuants after the experience they've just been through, would want to be fairly certain that their money is going to be invested wisely, and that these infrastructure projects are not there just to build the country, but to make a profit.
Absolutely, and I'm not talking about mandating any investment, but why are infrastructure projects, why are superannuation funds investing in infrastructure projects in other countries and not here? Well, the reason is because we've got 100 years of inconsistent regulations across 9 jurisdictions of government. They were all sitting there yesterday with an opportunity to address that and try and unlock tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of private money. Labor does not think in these terms. They think of deficits and debt and government spending and taxation. They don't think about what's possible to unlock in the private sector. There's not a problem with cash. There's mountains of cash out there. There's no liquidity. It's locked up. Governments can do when they can do. They did not even address it yesterday. It was a huge lost opportunity.
Now, just back to the to COAG and